Hey everyone, hope you're doing marvelously well in these strange times. So I was asked quite a lot after my review of the AS1 what I do think of the sound quality in general, and if I don't find that the AS1 is too complicated to operate and to program. And if you haven't watched my video yet, it's right over here in the right corner, and because there aren't many videos out there, I thought this might be a great starting point now to show you today how to program the AS1. So what do we have essentially here? The AS1 is a monophonic analog synthesizer with two voltage controlled oscillators plus a sub oscillator with a filter envelope, an amp envelope, and a low frequency oscillator. And you have some shape controls or some tone controls with a very nice low pass filter and a high pass filter as well. So the controls on the AS1 are quite simple. You have control over the low pass filter, so this is the cutoff and also the resonance, and you have this secondary cutoff control which is for the high pass filter. So this is the filter section, and it's quite easy because the AS1 was intended for DJs, but don't get too frustrated with the layout. It's actually quite great to program. So on the right side we have the envelope controls, attack and decay / release, but these are for both the amp and the filter envelope. And on the right hand side, the last button is the frequency control for the LFO. If we hit switch, you see that we activate the secondary functions on the knobs and the buttons. So for example, if I go over to the control of the category, the parameter knob, you see that I now switch through the categories. Hope you can see that. Maybe I do that now right here. So you can switch through the categories and you can move really fast through every parameter of the AS1. So this is really, really cool. Let's start. Okay, so I have this bass sound here. Let's put off the FX. And let's say we want to start with a fresh sound. So it's just initialized, there's nothing there. We go to the global button, and I showed you here. So you have the parameter and the value knob, and these are the important knobs for everything that happens within the synth architecture. So I have now the parameter knob here, and I've went through the to the global menu, and now if I go to menu entry 23, you see that we have the basic program option, and this gives us a completely new, fresh initialized patch. So I have to hit latch, and now you hear that we have a just completely new sound. So again, global, if you hear global, go to 23, hit latch, and then you have a new patch. Okay, so let's edit the sound. Basically we have two oscillators. So I go back to the top, and you see here that the oscillator itself are just controlled from the control again, and also we have every entry for every oscillator. So frequency, normally you have something like, this is something very special to Dave Smith, who designed the AS1 because it's one voice of the Prophet 6. Normally you would find that you have like a 0 and then you switch between the semitones. Actually with the AS1 you have note values. So this is a C2, and if I now change the value, I go down and up. So I would like to program a bass synth sound. So I leave it at C2. I'm already an octave down, by the way, so you can control the nice keyboard down here by going up or down with the octave buttons. So already an octave down below. And let's go to the shape control. Well, so the shape control is really interesting because the shape control of the AS1 gives you the control of changing between different waveforms of the oscillators. So we start with the saw, and if we go to the right hand side, we have the pulse width. So this is a pulse waveform, and if we go to the left side, we have the what they call the tri shape with. So this is a triangle, and now if I go to the right hand side, I get a sawtooth sound until I reach the pulse sound. And the great thing is that if I go one menu item down, I have the pulse width. So this gives me the control of the pulse width of the pulse wave. And as you can imagine, this gives you quite a lot of sound or sonic character because we can go through these, because we have this like sort of like shapes in between the three major waveforms. So I like to have something between the sawtooth and the pulse wave, because this gives you a really nice buzz, especially when you have this oscillator 1 between sawtooth and pulse. So then there's the sync option, which lets you sync the two oscillators, oscillator 1 and 2. And then we are already at the oscillator 2 page. So with oscillator 2, sometimes I would like to have something more gritty. So let's say we want to program a bass patch. So normally I would turn it down to C1, so it's an octave down. And then we go, let's do that with a shift control. We go to the oscillators and to the mixer. And in the mixer, I can control the levels of each of the oscillators. So we have, like I mentioned, the oscillator 1, the oscillator 2, which is 0 now. So if I increase, you can hear that now oscillator 2 is already also in the signal path. And then we have the sub level, which states the sub oscillator. So I hope you can hear that. I just turn down both. Just nice. Really fat sound. Love this sound. But I want to have something more buzzy, because I like the buzziness of the AS1. It's so great for these old school sounds. So let's do that. So we have now the old school way of working, I would call it that way. It's really buzzy. So let's go up again. So we have the slap control. So let's go back up. So we have the oscillator 2 page here, and this has the fine control. So again, if you go, oscillator 1, go down, oscillator 2, and the oscillator 2 has also a fine control. So you can have this like fine deviation of the pitch from oscillator 1. And this gives us a very fat sound. Woo! Great. And if we go down, we see that we also can control the shape of oscillator 2. So I could say, I want to have it a little bit more buzzy, but actually because it's an octave down, I like the fatness that I get from this pure sawtooth. That's nothing for me. I like that. I like that. So, no. Let's put it a pure sawtooth. And now we go one down. We have also the pulse width control and the key follow. So you could use oscillator 2 also as a secondary LFO, because you can turn off the pitch, and then the oscillator is just at a current pitch and it's not tracking the keyboard. But we want to have that, so let's go down. That's the low frequency mode that I was talking about, and now we're at the mixer stage. And we also have really nice noise. Really great, but I don't need that. And now we're already at the low pass filter. So I love the low pass filter. This is such a warm tone. This is amazing. Such a warm tone. Love it. And then you also have the resonance. So let's go down. You can also set the resonance here or here, but it's always highlighted by both values. So and this is something that you will immediately recognize when working with the AS1. It never sounds harsh. It's always like a very musical sound that you can use on everything. So love that. Love that. And now we come to one of the main features. So, okay. Again, you can also set the key amount, so the higher the notes go, you can increase like the filter opens up. The more you go upwards, the key range. But we don't want that right now. So the next thing is velocity, also really interesting. So you can say that there is some kind of velocity control. So the harder you hit the note, you get more of the opening of the filter. Next thing, and this is something I totally love, is the high pass filter. The high pass filter is the hidden gem for me on this synth, because you actually can increase, like on the MS-20, the subharmonic content. And how you do that? So again, let's go through that. So you can either set the value here, or you can just control here. But what you need is the resonance. So also the high pass filter has a resonance, and I turn that fully on, because what you then get is such a nice harmonic tone on the high pass frequency. So let me show you what that will sound like. So again, so what I get from this is sort of like phasing or wah-wah sound. It's like the synth talks to me with a high pass filter engaged and with the resonance on full. Such a lovely tone, so great for arpeggios and sort of like aggressive tones. Love it for so many things. You will see that later. So also the high pass filter can have a key amount of the velocity. And now we're here at the filter envelope, and the filter envelope obviously sets the amount of modulation for the cutoff of the low pass filter. And since we want to do a bass sound, we don't need that much modulation amount. I like my basses to be a bit more snappy, so and that's what I mean, you know, you hear that now. And if I now increase, it's like you can dial in another note into the signal. So that's great. Love it. So let's go down. So you could also use the high pass. You know, so the high pass could also get some, and also negative values, of course. But for the bass sound, it's not interesting. So here is the filter envelope settings like attack, decay, sustain, and release. And the same goes for the amp envelope, which is by default fully on. So always, you know, like always this snappy controls. It's so snappy. I love it. Okay. Next thing is the glide, which is quite interesting for many things, especially lead sounds. So what you get is like, yeah, this gliding between the notes, which is really cool for many things. And you can increase. Yeah, let's turn that on. And yeah, then we have the LFO, which can also be synced to the tempo. So this will is synced always to the sequencer that you have in here. I'll show you that in a minute. And then we have the destinations for the LFO. But since this is a more like traditional bass sound, I don't want to use that much of LFO right now, but something really interesting is the slider. So the slider is this beautiful slider here on the side, and you can also assign different sources or destinations to this. Not sources because this is the source, but you can destinations to it. So for example, the high pass, or the LFO amount, or the effects mix. So this is interesting for later. So let's set that here. And the interesting part about the slider is that we can latch it. So I can say this is the value, and then I can have like certain values at a particular level. Great for live. So again, then we have another modulation possibility. So you have some really interesting modulations for the AS1, and then you're already at the effects stage. And I have to say that the effects are great on this. The AS1 has some really cool effects. So you have this bucket brigade delay. Let me make sure that everything is set to sync, and we give it a sync time and effects mix, and make it on. So I go back up because obviously I still have the high pass on the slider. Put that off. So the slider gets effects mix, and I can just. So let's go back. So that's really cool, like, you know. And let me put that to a certain value. And the sync time is great. And I mean, just the feedback of the Bucket Brigade. And then you can play with it, you know, like you can turn off the sync. Oh, wow. Just hear it. And it's great. And then, because of the Bucket Brigade design, if I go to the top, such a great sound. The next effects type is the distortion. Again, these are all digital effects, but they are programmed in such a nice way. I love them. So, full on. Instant Daft Punk style sounds. Again, with the high pass filter, you get this like, you can like really make it scream. Love it. And the next one is the ring mod, and the ring mod is one of my favorites with the Bucket Brigade together. If you tune them right, you have this like really interesting like Berlin, Detroit sounds. So let me do some a little. Maybe we go to the second, the chorus. So you can have really interesting sounds right out of the bat because you have two effects at once that you can activate. So effects on the second processor are chorus and the phaser. And this is also a great phaser. So interesting sound, gives you a lot of flexibility. You can do a lot with it. So that's it really. So I would say you have also the aftertouch parameters, by the way. Let me just to go out of this video by just tweaking some sounds, because I like to have this shown to you now. Let me do some sounds. So yeah, arpeggios, but you can also do this like long notes. So a lot of expressivity. Expressivity is not a word, but it's very expressive. You can work with this really, really easily. Okay, guys, I think we are now at this stage. It's been too long, but hopefully you can get something out of it and you enjoy the video. See you next time. If you have some questions about the AS-1, give me some comments down in the description. Give me please a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Okay, see you next time.